and welcome to Lunchtime Politics on Channels Television. I'm Kaido Kikilu here in Lagos. These are the biggest political stories making the rounds at this hour. Reactions continue to troll President Bola Tinubu's media chat, where he addressed various national issues, from subsidy removal to inflation, security, and so much more. But the big question is, how well was he able to address the hardship which some of his policies have brought on Nigerians? We'll find out. Tragedy in Plateau State, where a 1-year-old boy and 14 persons have been reported killed by yet to be identified assailants in a hamlet in Riom local government area. Defend the nation's democracy. Well, that's the charge from the Chief of Defense Staff to officers of the nation's military force in the fight to bring insurgency to its knees. Let's get right into it. President Bola Tinubu's media chat is still rippling across the country, particularly with the statement he made. Tax reforms initiated by his administration, but a decision which he says is to eliminate colonial-based assumptions in the country's tax environment. Also, the president says he has no regrets removing fuel subsidy. That's in spite of attendant effects on the cost of living and the citizens. Reacting to a question by Makwe Yusuf, the president says leaving the subsidy could have been tantamount to postponing the evil day as the country was running out of revenue to sustain the subsidy regime.
Essence of the tax reform is to eliminate colonial days assumptions in our tax environment. I was once the governor of Lagos State, and I remember what I meant, and I'm proud of what I left and what it is today. It's a large state now, and it's still expanding. The greatest real estate value is here. You have to accommodate all of that. You have to put that one into the economic calculations. All we ask for is widen the net, bake the cake larger, so that we can share a larger meal. What is the need? They will still ask for this consultation, no matter how long I delay it. The hallmark of a good leader is the ability to do what you have to do at the time it has to be done. I don't want to question people with a 5 limousine type of vehicles on the roads. Well, we should teach management with all our programs. We have to manage our resources within our means. There's no way out that you give out fuel and allow all the entire neighboring countries as Father Christmas. I don't have any regret whatsoever removing the subsidy. It is necessary. We cannot spend our future generations' investment upfront.
But do you think it should have been phased, done in bits?
It is part of the fear that is unnecessary. Phased, no matter how you cut it or you slice it in segments, you still have to meet the bills. So, cut your coat strictly to your size. It's what we must manage. Management is the issue. And we have no choice but to pull the handbrake. Otherwise, we are headed for slippery slopes.
So how are Nigerians receiving some of the president's comments? We're joined by Professor Segun Ajibola, Professor of Economics, Babcock University, and past President, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Welcome to Lunchtime Politics, Prof. Well, let me just get right into it. First, listening to the president answer those questions, his responses, one, did you get a sense that the president was in touch with the reality of Nigerians, the reality which majority of Nigerians are facing as a result of the economic policies of his government on the one hand? And did you also sense that urgency in the way he responded and in the things being done to ameliorate that situation? Did you sense those two things, Prof?
I think Mr. President has been consistent with his position, especially on this issue of fuel subsidy removal. That is necessary. He has no regret, and if he has any, if anything, it's a decision he will make again. The president is, to me, right in saying that the issues and matters surrounding fuel subsidy in Nigeria have been so complicated over the years. First, the issue of the cabals. Second is the issue of leakages from our system, especially to the neighboring countries, in which case Nigeria as a country has been subsidizing the neighboring countries in terms of what it costs to procure fuel. However, as is often said, there are occasions when things may have to go worse before they can get better. Fuel subsidy removal is expected to eliminate the issue of subsidy, which in economics is a controversial subject matter. Appropriate pricing is a normal thing if we are talking about economic fundamentals. However, what is the appropriate pricing for a liter of fuel in Nigeria is still unsettled. See 1,100, see 900, see 800. And you will agree with me that the problem has been that Nigeria relies almost exclusively, in fact, before now, exclusively on imported fuel, with the attendance impact and implication on the foreign exchange rate. So if we annex the cost of fuel to the foreign exchange rate, there's already a distortion in itself. Because what is naira to dollar today is equally unsettled. Some will argue that naira is grossly undervalued. So these are some of the complications there. In other words, if we are talking about removal of fuel subsidy as a subject matter, to eliminate corruption, to eliminate unsolicited subsidy to others, neighboring countries, and so on and so forth. It's a decision that is normal, that is expected, especially those who are benefiting from this subsidy within our own environment, do not get into the masses. But the question is, what is the appropriate pricing per liter of fuel in Nigeria today? Why should we rely exclusively, almost exclusively now, on imported fuel when we have our own refineries that are not operating? If our refineries are operating, private investors are joining them, we have local production of fuel. Then we can now talk about what is the appropriate pricing per liter of fuel in Nigeria.
Well, Prof, let me step back a bit. Right, let me step back a bit and reiterate, pardon me, Prof, just to reiterate that point of the question. Two things. Did you hear enough empathy in the president's response? On the one hand, did you hear enough urgency in the president's response to placate the average Nigerian who has been at the receiving end of these policies for over a year now? So did you sense that from the president's response? And we can talk about what you have seen on ground, but let's talk about what you heard. Did you hear the empathy and the urgency from the president? Prof.
The president appreciated the hardships Nigerians are going through. and is calling for patience, and is even saying that within a short space of time, benefits will start coming. And you know, like I said, it's a complicated issue. So sympathy, empathy, or whatever will not solve the problem. What will solve the problem are what are the policies on ground to drive us to the destination, to drive us to a promised land, a land that will ensure prosperity for majority of Nigerians. So the president has said, I sympathize with Nigerians. I can appreciate the hardships, and I'm promising there will be a better tomorrow. I think that's empathy. Now, the sense of urgency, I don't know urgency in what direction, in what sense. If you ask me, as an individual today, there are still gaps in the way and manner some of our policies have been introduced. Those who we can call field officers, those who are economic managers, to me, this is my personal opinion, there are things they can do that they can still do better, that can still accelerate the pace of growth and development, that can still ensure that the hardship that we are talking about are substantially lessened. What are the fiscal incentives that we are giving out to industry, to businesses, to small-scale enterprises? How are we tackling the problem of inflation that will help simmer down some of the hardship we face in terms of cost of production, in terms of cost-induced inflation? These are areas that can address the sense of urgency that we are talking about. Some of them are still not being well addressed as an economy in Nigeria today. So we have some of these gaps, we have some of these distortions that we can really address some of the challenges that we have in our economic fundamentals. I think these are some of the areas that we still have that we can fully address the challenges in the local economy as of today. So many areas have attention.
Right. Let's talk about specifics now, Prof. Right, let's talk about specifics. What you've seen on ground, it's important to try to weigh that against, what some of the promises are. So the president, for example, says that inflation from over 30%, which it is now, will be brought down to 15% next year. Have you seen anything on ground to that effect? Because these are specifics now. These are promises being made. Is that realistic? Is that even possible with what you have seen on ground? If you've seen anything on ground, perhaps you can speak on that.
If we talk about whether it is possible, it is. At a time in this country, inflation rate was 70-something%. Eventually, it came down to single digits. So in terms of possibility, it is possible. But whether what we have on ground today can take us to that El Dorado, I have my doubts. Do not forget, the promise for end 2024 was either 22 or 23%. Rather than the rate coming down, as at the time that promise was made, the rate went up to 34%. Because to me, some of the policies that we have on ground today to address inflationary pressure in this environment, they are not the right policies. The problem we have in Nigeria today, the problem of inflation today, is no problem of monetary management. So continue to introduce contractionary policy, jacking up monetary policy rate, interest rate, will not address anything. Where is the excess money in circulation in Nigeria today? I don't have it in my pocket. I don't know. Mr. Moderator, if you have that in your pocket. Banks are even going to central bank to make use of the discount window to borrow from central bank. Where then is the money that central bank is mopping up by jacking up interest rate? Rather than do that, I think 70-80% of our inflationary problems in Nigeria, they are coming from the fiscal side. What are we doing to address cost of production? Interest rate itself is a cost to business. What are we doing to address the issue of high exchange rate, which is translating to high cost of raw materials and high cost of production? What are we doing in the area of agric, where we have lots of challenges in terms of cost of agric inputs, in terms of security challenges, in terms of even offloading the products from the various agricultural, peasant farmers and so on and so forth to the market in terms of providing storage materials and other infrastructure to help the agric sector and manage food inflation. I don't see enough of those policies on ground. So if you talk about the possibility, it is possible. We have driven down inflation from 73% to single digit in Nigeria. But what we have today, we need to retool so many things, especially from the fiscal side, to be able to get our approach to managing inflation right. As of today, Mr. Moderator, my candid opinion is that that is not the case. So a lot still need to be done if we want to really tackle the problem of inflation in Nigeria.
As you rightly said, Prof, the target for this year was 21%. We're still 34%. So if the goal for next year is 15%, judging from what we did this year, adding an extra 13% to the 21% target, perhaps we'll be looking at 28% next year. So let's maybe drill down, because the president, I think he spoke to specifics, and you mentioned some of those areas. The president talked about producing more for consumption locally. How well that is happening, there's a big question mark around that. If you can even talk about the cost of production in itself, the value of the naira again, because a lot of these things are imported, the machineries are imported. So encouraging consumption locally and production locally, big question mark on that. Talked about give a reasonable level of low interest to farmers. You also mentioned that, Prof, a very important point. You talked about improving the security for the farmers. Just recently, we had a kidnap incident in Ekiti, around Ekiti. An 18-seater bus was attacked. We had Plateau also attacked, which we'll of course be bringing to the news. So maybe we should reiterate these points more. What are those things specifically now that you'd expect? The budget has been presented, key projections have been made and assumptions, but let's maybe be more rounded. If the president were to focus his energy on three things, Prof, what would they be for you?
Very good. You know, the campaign has been on for long. As a country, let us consume what we produce. Let us produce what we consume. You will recall that India was in this kind of situation some decades back. And somebody rose up in India to say if Indians cannot feed themselves, I mean, if India cannot feed its citizens, let Indians go hungry. If India cannot clothe themselves, let Indians go naked. Today, India exports food. Today, India has one of the strongest textile industries in the world. Because of that, change your mindset, change your focus, change your vision and mission. Mr. President has been so consistent and has been so concerned and so passionate, desperate about some of these things. But Mr. President alone cannot do much. Mr. President can only give the signals, can only give the direction. And I talk about the field officers, I talk about economic managers earlier on. I went through all the policy initiatives the president talked about. But what will happen when it comes to implementation? At the various levels, various tiers of economic management, are we prepared as a country to walk the talk? Do we have the right mindset, the right focus, the right hands, the right managers, the right individuals that we walk the talk, that we do the do of it, not the saying of it? So that is where we have to appeal to ourselves. Each of those policies, like if we take the oil and gas as an example, just zeroing in on if petroleum product as a single one, if we can stop smuggling of petroleum products, if we can encourage the private investors, if we can be sincere with the turnaround maintain and get all the local refineries work, imagine what we would save in terms of foreign exchange. Imagine the impact that will have on imported inflation into Nigeria.
Well, so quite a job of work.
We need to appeal to NNPC Limited, for example. We need to appeal to other agencies to walk the talk in that area. When we come to agric, we also pick all those policies in terms of agric input, in terms of even finished product, in terms of security challenges, our security agencies. What can we do? The food basket in Nigeria.
Clearly, if anything, projections are good, but as you said, we have to do the real work. We'd like to thank you so much. I know we caught up with you while on the road, traveling for the festivities, but thank you so much. We've been speaking with Professor Segun Jibola, Professor of Economics, Babcock University, and past President, Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Thank you so much. Compliments of a season. Let me say Merry Christmas to you, Prof.
Thank you very much.
Well, it doesn't look like it will be a Merry Christmas for the community in Plateau State, where 15 persons, including a one-year-old boy, were reportedly murdered by assailants on Sunday night at Rido, also known as Gidan Edo, a hamlet of Riom local government area of Plateau State, while one other was seriously injured. In a press statement issued by the National Publicity Secretary of Irigwe Natives, Mr. Sam Jugo, the community, predominantly inhabited by the Irigwe natives from Bassa, was attacked at night by unknown gunmen. The leadership of the association expressed concern over the attack, which comes a few hours to the Yuletide, urging security agencies to ensure future occurrences and reprisals are prevented. The victims are said to have been given a mass burial at the community interment site amidst wailing. The Joint Security Task Force Operation Safe Haven and the police are yet to comment on the attack. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, is asking newly promoted officers of the Nigerian Army and the Nigerian Navy to defend the nation's democracy, in addition to their core mandate of protecting the nation's territorial integrity. General Musa gave the charge in Abuja at the decoration of newly promoted Army and Naval officers. He further tasked the officers to double their efforts and bring insurgency to an end.
These officers, in the company of their spouses, friends and associates, are getting ready to step into their new ranks in the Nigerian Army. 38 newly promoted officers are participating in the investiture, and the Chief of Administration, Nigerian Army, explains the essence of the exercise.
The Nigerian Army has ensured that worthy and qualified officers and soldiers are elevated to higher ranks as and when due, in line with the Chief of Army Staff's command philosophy.
One after the other, the newly promoted officers are decorated with their new rank. The Chief of Army Staff demands accountability from the newly promoted officers.
I wish to remind the newly promoted Major Generals that with higher rank comes higher responsibilities. The system has played its own part. Now it's time for you to play yours.
The fight against insurgency resonates as the Chief of Defense Staff charges the officers to defend the nation's territorial integrity and democracy.
Having reached the peak of your careers, always remember that the Nigerian Army and the Armed Forces will continue to rely on the leadership and expertise of individuals like you to safeguard our country and its people. Nigeria is looking up to us. We must do everything to defend democracy in Nigeria and across the sub-region.
Separately, the shipping of stripes is conducted for 24 newly promoted Rear Admirals of the Nigerian Navy. The newly decorated officers are charged to remain professional in the discharge of their duty.
As leaders of the service which you have become by this promotion, you are expected to be above board and ensure that your subordinates equally buy into the zero-tolerance stance of the Nigerian Navy to all forms of illegalities and criminalities in our area of operations.
The Nigerian Navy and the Armed Forces will continue to rely on the leadership and expertise of individuals like you for maritime security and to safeguard our country as well as its people.
As the newly decorated officers await fresh posting, the Chief of Defense Staff is optimistic of further decimating insurgents in the country.
And now to academic politics. Professors in the University of Abuja are protesting the process of selecting the Vice Chancellor of the school. Well, Channel's television's crew covering the protests were manhandled and the crew bus vandalized. by security operatives in the school after detaining them for over an hour. The university has been embroiled in a deep crisis over the process of appointing a new vice-chancellor following the exit of Abdul-Rashid Nala on July the 1st. At the heart of the dispute are allegations that a new governing council, in collaboration with certain staff members, attempting to install Aisha Maikudi despite her alleged ineligibility under the advertised criteria. Let's tell you that President Bola Tinubu has put out his Christmas message to Nigerians as they celebrate the Christmas celebrations, that's particularly for Christian faithful. The president, who, of course, expressed satisfaction and gladness on the path which Nigeria is going, which he calls a path of restoration, asks Nigerians to yet again be patient with this government as they work towards restoring the pride of the nation. In a statement which he personally signed, he says, "On this joyous Christmas Day, I extend my heartfelt greetings to Christians across Nigeria and worldwide as we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, as narrated in the Holy Scriptures. Nigeria is on a promising path of restoration and progress, with every indication pointing toward a bright future. In the spirit of this season, let us renew our hope and believe in a prosperous Nigeria." He also asked Nigerians to extend similar support and prayers to the leaders of the nation. He says, "With your backing, we can serve our country diligently and strive for prosperity." And just before we go, let's tell you that the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee, that's the LPDC, has rejected a request by Chief Afe Babalola, that's his law firm, Emmanuel Chambers, to revoke the law practicing license of lawyer and author Mr. Dele Faratimi, also known as Tomilola Faratimi, over allegations of criminal defamation and professional misconduct. Mr. Faratimi was brought before the LPDC based on a petition authored by Mr. Olafaro, a lawyer in Emmanuel Chambers. And there you have it. The Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee, LPDC, has rejected Chief Afe Babalola's law firm, Emmanuel Chambers' request to revoke the law practicing license of Dele Faratimi. Well, this is a developing story, and we also understand that he is now left detention. But we'll bring you more updates on that case as they come in. That's Lunchtime Politics for this afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kyle. Stay with Channels Television and make sure to have a prosperous Christmas. Thank you.